She checked herself then and got up, dropping her gloves as she did so. I do hope you won't say I've said all this, Louisa. I just had to talk to somebody. I feel better now. And of course it's all nonsense about my going away. Where would I go? She hurried off through the August heat, and I went into the house. It seemed strange to me that day to remember how, only a week ago, we were living our complacent orderly lives, that on the surface at least we were a contented group of householders, and that our only skeleton was the occasional violent separations between Jim Wellington and Helen. The Daltons too, but we were so accustomed to that situation, and it so little affected our normal living that we hardly noticed it. Now every house on the Crescent had been shown to have its story, for the death of Holmes had involved even ours. Under those carefully tended roofs, behind the polished windows with their clean draped curtains, through all the fastidious ordering of our days there had been unhappiness and revolt. We had gone our polite and rather ceremonious way while almost certainly somewhere among us there had been both hatred and murderous fury. I remember standing in the darkened hall and once again calling the roll. It could not be, but when Annie came to say that our car had been brought back and the driver wanted to see me in the garage, I was gazing fixedly through the door into the library, where my father's portrait in oil hangs above the mantel. I was not seeing it, however. I was seeing instead the old crayon enlargement of George's father which used to be in the stable loft, and hearing Lydia's flat voice. She knows he wouldn't do her any harm. He was the gentlest soul alive. I went back to the garage, to find a man in rough clothes and a cap who had raised the engine hood and seemed to be entirely engrossed in what poor Holmes had always called the car's innards. "Seems all right, miss," he said, and then looked up. It was Herbert Dean, in a mechanic's overalls and a dirty cap. "Sorry to be so long, miss," he went on. "I suppose, like most women, you never notice your mileage?" "Considering that we never go anywhere, why should I?" "True. Too true," he observed. "Of course that's all over now," he added cryptically. "Still, if you had it might help. Or it might not. I have an idea that if this baby could talk it would tell us a good bit about poor Holmes, and his movements yesterday." "But I can make a fair guess at that." "Am I supposed to ask what you are guessing?" He looked gratified, or pretended to. Certainly you are. But he dropped his light manner then. I'm guessing, he said slowly, that at some time yesterday, probably toward noon, this car drew up at a house not far from here, but outside the Crescent, that a chauffeur in livery, Holmes, impressively delivered either a note or a message, probably a note, to a lady who rents rooms, and that in all probability this landlady was a tall thinnish woman who was duly impressed by the whole outfit, and who received that message in good faith. And, I am still guessing but I believe, that same Holmes went back last night with a light truck of some sort and took away from that house one new trunk, which would be unduly heavy for its size, and which may have required help, say, the landlady's son, if she had one. Most landladies have no husbands. That's the reason they are landladies. Are you saying that the gold was in that trunk? I am guessing, dear Lou of the nice quiet eyes. But I think it's true. And so that poor little shrimp lost his life. Then he was murdered for that money. I haven't said that, I'm not sure. But either by accident or design he was killed, my darling. He was knocked on the head, and after that the truck, it was almost certainly a truck, went over him. It's horrible. Well, it's queer. And some of the other things are queer. I can understand putting his coat on to hide the tar marks on his shirt, the truck had been through tar. It was smart, you see. In 9 cases out of 10 he'd be picked up as a hit and run case, and that would be the end of it. But why lay him out neatly on the road, and then anchor his handkerchief on his chest with a stone, so that he would be sure to be found? Herbert, I asked feverishly, was Holmes killed by the same person who killed Mrs. Lancaster and Emily? He shook his head. God knows, he said. It is all connected somehow, but I can tell you this. So far as it is possible to be sure of anything, nobody left the Crescent last night. But all I'm certain of this morning is that somewhere, perhaps still on the road but more probably hidden somewhere in a house, is the new trunk in which, brace yourself for this, the new trunk in which Emily Lancaster hid the gold which she systematically took at night from under her mother's bed. He was getting ready to leave by that time, going by way of the path across no man's land to Euclid Street, and under Mary's prying eyes I could only stand and stare at him. I think you'll find the car all right, miss, he said, touching his cap.